Well, first, I want to say thank you to everybody that is here. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's a tight room right now. So, all right. Thank you first to all the candidates once again. Thank you to North Carolina State University. And I want to just say on behalf of the organization that I've been grateful to work for, Dogwood Alliance, thank you all for being here today. We are here to focus on Ready Your Vote, the nature of our communities. This forum was put together in part by concerned citizens that we work with, namely the Impacted Coalition Against Wood Pellet Group. That coalition that we work with as well as directly inside Dogwood, with the intent to be able to create a platform of engagement between both communities. Oftentimes, the issue around environmental justice or environmental issues kind of gets pushed aside for more popular or hot button conversations, but this is one that we felt was necessary. While that is the intent of Dogwood Alliance, it is also, as my job as the North Carolina campaign manager, the intent to be able to build and foster relationships with some of you folks that have agreed today to step on the platform and tell us portions about your story, your reasons for running, and take a very intense conversation questions from our host and our co-moderator today, Loretta Benetti. So I want to just go ahead and, I know it's only a small group of us, and just can you put your hands together and give you a round of applause, and thank you for being here. All right. We are streaming online, as I said to all those in the room, so to all our online folks, thank you for being here. And I want to kind of give a micro spill on behalf of Dogwood Alliance and our founder and executive director, Dana Smith, who couldn't be here today. Dogwood Alliance is completely focused on the forestry issues inside of North Carolina, namely in eastern North Carolina. Just as of recently, we were in an area of Ohaski, trying and attempting to press an issue for the continuation of wood pellet plants. However folks may feel on both sides of this issue, one thing is certain, that this is something that is concerning to those who are there. There's this perception that the cutting of trees produces more jobs. But there's also this other anomaly that we have to deal with folks dealing with health issues. And given that this is a very interesting year, and I see some of our electeds that are already in the room, North Carolina being opening up for Medicare and all of these exacerbated issues, this is something that we thought we wanted to make sure that we center in the conversation today, one of. And so I just want to welcome you, and I thank you. We're not trying to be an enemy. We want to be an ally. We also partner with several other environmental justice organizations, and so we want to be able to open this up across the scale. So today, we are fortunate enough, and we're going to move forward, and I'm going to ask my colleague to put up. We're going to have all of the candidates come up and sit down one by one. As we go through the list, their names should be on the slide as well as on the screen, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to give before a thanks and a congratulations again to Spectrum News, Loretta Benetti. Loretta, would you like to say something at this point? You okay? All right. So thank you for attending. She will be filtering the questions to all of the candidates as we call you. Okay. All right. Go ahead. First candidate on the list. So if is Amber Baker in the room, come on, Rep. Baker. I appreciate you. And I guess we can see from inside out. You can choose any side you want. All right. And then go to the next one. And then we have Representative Ball. If you can come, I appreciate you as well. And go to the next one. And then we have Ryan Brown. If you can come, sir, I appreciate you. Maria Servina, I didn't see her. We'll come back. Leah Coulter says she wasn't going to be in attendance today, unfortunately. Allison, hey, darling, she's not here as well. Go ahead. Eric Davis, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. I have Sean Ewing. Please come. Appreciate you, sir. Good to see you again, Sean. Good to see you. Representative Gill, I think, is still trying to find parking, so we'll leave a space for her. It's a little challenging. Go ahead. Lisa Grafstein. It's not here either. All right, go ahead. Matthew, thank you, Matthew, Mr. Matthew Lazix. Forgive me if I said your name wrong. Trying to make sure I pronounce it. Lazax. Thank you, sir. Next, we have Miss Wendy Ella May. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right. And Charles Mazel. Thank you, sir. No problem. Thank you. Next, and then we have James Powers is still next. Alvin Reed, sir, thank you. Thank you. And then we have Isha Sandage, I didn't see her. I think she might have been. And then Dee Watson, thank you. And then Senator Woodruff, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. We'll start from this side over. So Representative Baker, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
So good evening, everyone. I'm Representative Amber Baker, representing District 72 out of Forsyth County. I am completing my first term, running for my second term. I am an educator of 27 years and decided to become an advocate in the legislature because of our failure to fully fund public education and to ensure that people who have not typically had a voice in Raleigh now can be assured that they have someone there that's representing them.
My name is Ryan Brown. I am a first-time candidate. I'm running for Senate District 18, which is Northern Wake County and Granville County. I'm running as a libertarian, and I believe that free markets and private property can solve all of our problems, including environmental, educational, healthcare, and economic. I'm happy to be here tonight and looking forward to working with you guys if I do end up getting elected. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric Davis. I'm running for North Carolina House District 78, so Eastern, Southern Randolph, Western Moore counties. I'm also a first-time candidate, so it's been a bit of a ride, but I felt like I needed to run because I know we talked about education already, but I wanted to try to re-enhance the education we have in North Carolina with the expansion of Medicaid that's kind of faltering. You know, will we, won't we? I want to try to be a voice that can actually bring that in. And my background is in like geography, environmental science, so I want to try to bring that to Raleigh so they can actually have someone who understands the topics, especially under Dogwood Alliance is the environmental justice aspect is something that I really enjoy.
And I'm Matt Lazak. I'm running for Senate 14, North Carolina General Assembly. My district will stretch from downtown out through eastern Wake County out to Wendell. I am running on a platform of returning the power of choice to the citizens of North Carolina. I want to give parents additional choice in how and where their children are educated. I want to give people additional choice in how they best utilize their natural skills and abilities to generate, income and wealth for their families and fully participate in the American dream. I'm a father. My children are grown. As a very young father, I struggled through trying to raise children on very limited means. So I would employ a lot of that wisdom that I've gained from that experience in my representation of Senate District 14. Thank you.
Chris Mazzell, Libertarian candidate for NC House 38. I'm a former public school high school teacher, currently work in the corporate world and transportation logistics. And I am running on a platform of returning power back to individuals, families, and communities where it belongs. And to that extent, I would like to expand housing affordability through getting rid of restricted zoning, unnecessary land use restrictions, and things like that. I would like to restore the criminal justice system. It is completely upside down right now and is not doing what a real criminal justice system would do. So I want to end the war on drugs. I want to get rid of all asset forfeiture, and I would like to end qualified immunity. And my third plank is expanding school choice. So nobody knows better than parents how to educate their kids, and I would like to expand as much choice in the education system. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dee Watson. I am the Libertarian running in North Carolina Senate District 16. I have worked for 10 years as a statistician at Duke University in clinical trials, and I also worked for a decade in contracting to the pharmaceutical industry in clinical trials. So I come from a background where different people form a team, and they each look at a solution differently, and they each look at a problem differently. So I'm used to working with people who look at problems from different angles and find common ground solutions, and I hope to bring that to Raleigh. In terms of the environment, I am an advocate for property rights. So although you can do what you want on your property, the minute something leaves your property, you're also accountable for that. So when Duke pours coal ash into our water supply, it has impacted the property rights of everyone who uses that water supply. When GenX is put into the Cape Fear River, everybody was impacted. Those companies got off because of government being in bed with those companies, and I'm completely opposed to that. I'm also an advocate for school choice. I have 3 wonderful daughters, and I understand that the best school for your child might not be the one that they were assigned to. I believe that the money should follow the child, and we should fund students, not systems. Everyone should have school choice. Right now, everyone who's affluent has school choice, but I want to bring school choice to everyone, regardless of their income status. And I also have been advocating, along with Ryan and Chris and Matt, for criminal justice reform. In North Carolina, we have a very difficult situation where there's not enough transparency in policing. And I want to change that, starting with the body camera footage being released and change the laws around that. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's be mindful, like we have a lot of candidates. I want to make sure I keep it 2 minutes because I want to take away Representative Ball. You can go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Good evening. First, thank you, Dogwood Alliance, for showing such a wonderful interest in the issues that are facing our state and those of us who are running for office, whether it be first candidates or those of us like me who have been in the legislature. I'm finishing my 3rd term. We have different perspectives, I'm sure. I ran first for the General Assembly because of great concern for the fact that we had not expanded Medicaid, but also that we were not funding our public schools and many other things, which I could go on, but I know we're limited in time. I'm a professional mediator, and I had hoped, because when I was first running, I talked about that a lot when I was knocking doors, and a lot of people said to me, we need more of that in the General Assembly, more people who are willing to work together, even though they may come from different points of view, that they will work to find common ground. That has not been something that we have been able to do very successfully, so I'm still hopeful. Perhaps in the next session, if I'm lucky enough to be reelected, we can make more progress in that regard. I'm born and bred in North Carolina. I love North Carolina, and I want to do all I can to protect its environment and its families and our children and the future of the state. Thank you.
I'll echo the good representative. Thank you, Dogwood Alliance, for having us here and having these important conversations. My name's Sean Ewing. I'm running for North Carolina Senate District 25. That's all of Alamance County and northeast Randolph County. I got about 15 years, I've served 15 years in the United States military, 6 years active duty in the U.S. Air Force, 9 years in the Air National Guard. While serving, I was able to get my electrical and computer engineering degree and served as a quality engineer. Quality engineering is very, very important. Something breaks on your car, something breaks on your truck. I don't go to the plant manager, I don't go to the CEO, I go to the people in the field to hear what's happening and hear what their concerns are. Our big concerns at District 25 are Medicaid expansion. That is a bipartisan law that we need to be passing yesterday that will help everyone regardless of your partisanship. Leandra plan, we have got to fully fund our schools across North Carolina because that follows very well into my third one, jobs. In our district, we have the Toyota battery plant. In Mebane, where I'm a city councilman right now, we just had another battery plant coming. Clean, green jobs are coming to our district. We need to make sure that our students are fully educated, well-educated, and that they get the funds that they need. Again, my name is Sean Ewing, running for Senate District 25.
Good evening, and thank you, Dogwood Alliance, for bringing us together. The environment is a key factor in my district. I'm Wendy LeMay. I'm running in Johnston County's district of House 28, which is the easternmost part of Johnston County, running along Interstate 95. And my issues and the issues of my people are very different than they are in other sections. Livable wage, accessibility to good paying jobs, require good public transportation. We have none. We have a lot of family farms that are being sold to become developments, which then will impact our schools. Our public schools are not funded properly. Our plan is to work across the line and to make sure that per student funding becomes available in every county equally. I'm LGBTQ, I'm the first non-binary. I'm not running on that. I'm running on issues. I'm Wendy LeMay, and I thank you very much for giving me the time.
Alvin Reed. I'm running for North Carolina Senate District 20, which is all of Chatham and Southern Durham. I'm running as a Republican. My education is mechanical engineering. My occupation is information systems. And my claim to fame is I am the author of the theory of biblical patterns, which proves that a higher intelligence wrote Genesis 1:1. If elected, I will go to Raleigh to push for school vouchers, which several others have also mentioned. The more competition we have in the educational system, the better off every student will be.
Good evening. I'm Mike Woodard. Currently serve Senate District 22. I'm running for re-election for my 6th term in the North Carolina Senate, representing Durham County. I want to continue the work that I've had over the last decade on education, healthcare, and the economy, with a strong focus on the environment. I look forward to our conversation tonight.
Thank you. Before our my gracious moderator starts, we had one more candidate. So you can go ahead and take your seat, and then you can introduce yourself. No problem.
Good evening. My name is Keisha Sandage, and excuse my tardiness. I do apologize for that. Had a difficult time getting here. I am running for Senate District 34. That's Cabarrus County minus Midland. We are a redistricted area. I am currently on the Cabarrus County Board of Education. I'm a mom of 2, and I am a wife. I've been married for 20 years to my husband, Rick Sandage. I initially got into the politics realm because I was concerned about the education for my students, for my kids, and for other students like them. I got in there and I started to realize that children like me that looked like my kids did not have a voice on our school board, as it had been over 25 years for a person of color on that school board. And it was very concerning to me that those voices were not being heard. I got into the school board meetings and I understood what my purpose was. At that point, I started to learn a lot more about politics because in my world, when I was growing up, we didn't talk about government at our dinner table. I didn't know that there was a possibility for me to run for office because I never saw anyone that looked like me there. I want children to be able to aspire to do anything in life. That is one reason why I am running. I am also running because education is crumbling in our state. And if we aren't doing anything about it besides pointing the fingers at other people because of their presentation, because of their political affiliation. Our kids are suffering in the balance of all of that. So I have several other priorities, but that is my most important priority because I look at my child every day and she expects me to protect her. And right now we live in a world that does not protect my child. And I am fighting for that.
Thank you very much. I just want to acknowledge that Representative Guild is also in attendance for those who are watching or coming. She's wrestling with parking, so I thank you all. It's been a little challenging to find parking location. The first question Loretta wants to pose, so I'm going to take the route of actually choosing. So I will ask to the candidate, to those who are seated in seats already, I'll give grace, if you would, to those who have not held position first to answer said question, if that is okay with you all. So to the representative, to the senator, is fine, are you fine with that? Thank you. And then I'll come back to you. So ready? I'm gonna go ahead and pose a question, and I'll go ahead and direct it how I think we do it. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the environmental issues, which is obviously the key to why you're here this evening. We'll get into some other stuff also. I want to start by talking about some things that already have been passed and are in effect and get your take on them. We passed a law here in North Carolina in 2021 that deals with things like emissions, amongst other things, dealing with climate change. This was highlighted as a big step forward by both Republicans and Democrats. First of all, do you agree with that assessment that this bill was a big step forward? And second, do you believe that under the current leadership that we have, particularly in the legislature, that any further steps would be possible?
I'm going to direct that question to the candidates who have not held office first, and then I'll come back to you all who are holding office. I'm going to ask, I know it may be hard, but if you can keep your responses to 2 minutes, I'm going to choose, and I'm going to give space for you all, three to four of you to go that have not held office yet. So anyone can grab the microphone and go. I see your hand. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not exactly sure of the exact bill that was passed. However, if I act on my principles, I have to say I probably oppose the bill. I don't believe in market intervention government intervention into the market. And this includes things like pollution. Pollution and environmental concerns can be solved with private property in mind. So if it comes to pollution, air pollution, I believe the citizens of the state who are affected by the pollution should have the ability to go to court and have a civil claim or a criminal claim against the people polluting. I think that's a more effective way to fight pollution. Is it a step forward? Probably not in that case. One thing that government intervention does is it will essentially, by setting a limit, it'll essentially give a maximum that people are legally allowed to pollute. And so if people are affected under those limits, then they have very little recourse. So I would rather see essentially a market for pollution, which would actually drive out the pollution because the people who are able to sue and fight the people polluting will disincentivize the pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else would like to take that question? Before
Could I get a clarification on which bill that exactly was?
House Bill 951.
Sean, you got to help me over here. So, which emissions was that?
The number one issue in it was limiting emissions by 2030.
To reduce?
Yes, I mean, that was the main thing. There were several other steps in it, but that is the main part of it.
Well, anything that can reduce our emissions, pretty much I'm kind of behind. I have to respectfully disagree with some of the things my compatriot here said. When it comes to when you try to add the private sector in, I feel that goes into setting a have and have not kind of section. So the government regulation tends to help reduce that, so it's more equitable, in my opinion. But anytime you're trying to lower emissions, you also have to take into account the economic cost, and I say this as a Democrat who follows climate a lot. So I would have to look into how exactly they were going to mitigate that for people who can't exactly afford it in areas like NIMBY. So companies that who could afford to fight, they can go into areas that can't fight back. And I feel like we need to work on using the government and private property rights in that regard. But as for that, I would say it's a step forward, because anytime we can get a bipartisan effort on climate, it's a blue moon that happens. So I fully support that as a step forward.
Okay. I'm gonna get one more person who is not running. I see hand here.
Well, he took what I was actually going to say, and not to be funny in any shape, form, or fashion, but anytime you have bipartisan legislation, especially in North Carolina, I'm almost apt to be immediately supportive of it, because in my opinion, as a licensed clinical social worker, that's our government working together. It's very suggestive of positivity. And then without having read the bill, I would also say that it sounds like a step in the right direction. It gives us an understanding of what we need not to go over. That doesn't mean it's etched in stone and it's not able to be discussed further. I think another thing that needs to start happening is, when our public reaches out to us, we've got to respond to those things so that we understand how these bills affect our public.
Okay, I'm gonna take. I'll take one here because I saw that hand come up first, and I'll come back to you. Go ahead.
So I'm not sure, was it specifically carbon emissions or emissions in general?
It was carbon emissions.
It was.
It's carbon emissions. If people don't know the details of this, I think it's probably better for us to move on to another question, because
I want to give space. If you're not able to adequately answer the question, it's fine. But I want to give space to the representatives who, Senator Woodward, would you like to go ahead and answer?
I don't want to pass to anybody else. Mr. Reed,
Yeah, I did have a
sorry,
comment on
that.
that. Actually, solar and wind are already cheaper than coal. We're just waiting on cheaper batteries. But keep the government out of it. The marketplace will take care of itself.
Before we move past this, because there were folks who were informed of it, would you like to be able to speak to the issue? Go ahead, Senator Woodward. And you all, please address your names, because there are folks online still.
So again, Senator Mike Woodard, I think what's important to remember is when we look at North Carolina's energy, there is no market solution, because by law and by practice, we have established an electric monopoly. Duke is the only energy company in North Carolina. So there is no market solution that we see in other states where there is a competitive marketplace. Therefore, we have established the Utilities Commission to be the regulator of our electric utility. So to Loretta's question, House Bill 951 is a historic piece of legislation and has become a model piece of legislation all around the state, because it sets in law clear goals for carbon emission reduction, 70% reduction by 2030 and full net zero by 2050. And then it directs the Utilities Commission in its job of regulating the electric utility, Duke Energy in this case, to meet those goals. The second part of Loretta's question was, after this legislation, how do we continue to move forward and can we meet those goals? I believe with the Utility Commission's direction, we can meet those goals, but it's going to take continued partnership between the legislature, between the executive branch of government, the Utilities Commission, and the utility working together. The governor also, in addition to House Bill 951, outlined a number of carbon goals that the administration is working to follow. And it is incumbent on the legislature, when we come back in 2023, to work with the governor to help meet those goals.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to give space to the other two representatives.
I'll just have a quick comment. Cynthia Ball, representing House District 49 and running for re-election. House Bill 951 did make a lot of progress, but it had what I refer to as poison pills with 5 words that gave Duke Energy, to the minds of those of us who voted against it, and the governor's veto, gave Duke Energy too much authority. And while there was many things in it, there were amendments proposed to try to change those words. And I could go into what they are, but not for, in the essence of time, I won't. But it could have been made better. And we can make further progress, and I hope we will.
Representative Amber Baker, District 72. And what I will say is this was the best that we could get. When you can only try to push for minor changes, what you have is a really bad bill that's less bad. And so when we're talking about compromise and working together, this was one of those instances where everybody got a little something and no one really walked away totally happy. And so, you know, it's baby steps. And for me, it was the first time that I could see where there is a pathway forward for us to work together if there's some interest there. And so I think that was the other part of the question is, are we able to work together to get some solutions? And the answer to that is yes. I think when there is a desire to do that and people were motivated to get this bill passed. And like I said, it was a really bad bill that was less bad. And sometimes that's the best you can get. And I did vote for the bill because, you know, we have to try to find some commonality and work from there. And compromise means we get a little something that we want, and then we get some things that we don't want. And so I think that's really important as we try to move forward and work to a compromise.
Could I make just a quick correction to my statement? The governor was expected to veto the bill, but he did not.
Thank you.
Okay, sticking with laws that have already been passed, I want to talk on the federal level because we just saw the Inflation Reduction Act get passed. This has several points in it that deal with climate change and energy. Here in North Carolina, we saw the moratorium on wind energy get lifted in this federal legislation. So my question to you is, what steps now do you feel like the federal government should be putting into place to continue the move towards trying to combat climate change?
I will yield this time to those who are seated in elected positions first, and then I'll go to everyone else. Oh, and we'll rather running for re-election.
I'll go first. Again, Representative Amber Baker, District 72. I think it's important that in some instances the federal government provides us with a blueprint. Each state will have nuances that are different or unique to them that won't necessarily apply to all states. And so I think that's where it's incumbent upon us as state legislators to make sure that we take what we can from that federal legislation and apply it. So, you know, maybe Utah doesn't have to deal with some of the environmental pollution that comes from hog farms. When we debated that bill, we were offered a national study about the impact of environmental pollution, and it was a skewed study because it was focused primarily on an urban setting. And so we know that in rural areas, the environmental pollution may be much more higher than it would be in an urban area. So I think it's important for us to understand what those issues are and to do your homework. We all are elected to represent a district, but there are times when we're being asked to make decisions in parts of the state that we have to do a little extra homework, and that was an instance. where I needed to do that. I needed to understand that. And so, again, I think the federal legislation gives us a blueprint. The states provide the specifics.
Just want a reminder, can you please speak into the microphone? I understand. Just they caught you. I just want to make
Okay.
sure that they're getting
How about if we
everything.
just leave it like this?
You can
and then-
move it. It's fine. It just I just
Okay.
want to make sure we get all your points. And to the other seated electeds, would you, before we go to others? Go ahead, Senator.
Well, I think this is a great piece of legislation, and I was happy to be in Washington last week to celebrate with members of Congress and members of the Biden-Harris administration as well. Loretta, you touched on one piece, which that is protected our investment in offshore wind. I would like to see the federal government actually expand offshore wind as well, and so that was good. I think it could have gone a little bit further on in solar energy. We're going to continue to need some assistance there on solar energy. We talked about, Mr. Reed mentioned battery storage. That's an evolving technology that's made some great strides, but I think we can do a little bit better there, and help with our federal partners will continue to be important. As we continue to move to electric vehicles, we're going to continue to need to continue to beef up our grid with electricity, and particularly with charging stations along our federal highways. There has been some move by some in Washington to actually restrict access to charging stations along our federal interstate system. We need to do everything to stop that, and I would suggest to you we need to expand charging stations along the federal highway system.
Thank you. Representative Ball, I wanted to.
Well, I agree with Senator Woodward that this was a fine piece of legislation and went farther than anything had in addressing issues of sustainability. But we didn't talk about, the question was not about the other things in it, but it also reduced the cost of health care, provisions to make sure that more products were made in America, made the tax code fairer, and so forth. So it was a composition of several issues that needed to be addressed, and I hope we can make further progress on all of them.
Thank you. I wanted to give the question now to the colleagues. I'm going to go to Sean because I didn't see you speak yet, and then I was going to go to Wendy
I'm itching
after.
at this one. So Sean Ewing, currently City Councilman, City of Mebane, running for North Carolina Senate District 25. This is a phenomenal piece of legislation. It's a really good start in the right direction. I'm an electrical engineer. I have worked on fastest electric vehicles on Earth. I have developed electric vehicles in the past. This is a great start, but the one thing that we need to be focusing on if we really want to be moving forward to the electrification of our future is making it affordable for everyone. It is a great start. Again, the Inflation Reduction Act has upfront discounts of up to $7,500 for new EVs and $4,000 for used EVs. That's a good start. We can do better. I know we can do better. My thing, moving forward, especially in our district, since we're going to be having the Toyota battery plant, since we're going to have a Sunlight plant over in Mebane, if we can move on a federal level to standardization of battery packs, I kid you not, that's going to be a huge move forward. I recently bought a Nissan Leaf a few years ago. Great price, wonderful. The batteries eventually died. That's fine. $9,000 for a new battery pack when I could trade the car in for $2,000. That's not sustainable, and it's not going to help people switch over. I have no reason to switch over if that's what it's going to cost. So if we can move forward in the future, my pie in the sky from a federal level would be a standardization of battery packs, whether it be small packs altogether or big ones, that's fine. But we've got to bring down prices so it's affordable for the regular American.
Thank you. Wendy?
So I want to touch on the definite need for more charging stations. My district runs along Interstate 95 and Interstate 40 and the new Interstate 42. And I see today people waiting in line to charge their vehicles. We need more, not less. We need them on our interstate. I agree with everyone else up here on this panel, everything that's been said. But I also look at it as safety. And the battery packs are now coming into the state of the art. And this is an opportunity for us, here especially in North Carolina, especially in your district, where Toyota is going to build a brand new plan. Looking at my district, which has growth, that we may get a plant, but we have Interstate 95 running through there. We have about 37 charging stations between Kenley and Benson, and we could use 50 more. And what they do is they allow people to come into the community to charge their vehicle, and that also brings them into our businesses. We have Sheetz, and Sheetz is one of the best electric vehicle locations because they went into an agreement, and we need to make sure that we're giving them the breaks they need to keep the people coming. Interstate 95, Interstate 85, Interstate 40, and the new Interstate 42, these are critical. And I have to agree 100% that when we talk about opportunities along the ocean for wind, I have been personally fighting for 35 years for wind farms. I would prefer a wind farm over an oil drilling platform any single day. And that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go here before you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you. This is Matt Lazak, Senate District 14, North Carolina General Assembly. I think the question was, what would we like the federal government to do? And I would like the federal government to take into account that all of these questions of that we're trying to solve here are super complex, right? And there's a lot of trade-offs that are involved. And I know the government wants to kind of pick a best solution and go with it, but in a lot of cases, they're not taking into account what's going to happen 5 years from now or the trade-offs. For example, California pushed incentives for electric vehicles 5 years ago, 6 years ago. They have no plan for what they're going to do with the batteries. Now the batteries are leaking and they're an environmental problem. So another issue, wind and solar, that's great. They're very local. The power is generated where the wind blows. The electricity is generated where the sun shines on the solar panels. How do you get that through the grid? We need to upgrade the grid, which is likely going to mean more batteries. So as we think through this challenge that we're creating by saying, hey, it's great, let's all jump on electric, how do we generate power in this state? We blow the tops off mountains and we cart coal to an electric plant and we burn it, and then we put all that coal, dirt up into the atmosphere. So there's even more carbon emissions. On top of that, lithium has to come out of the ground. Somebody's got to mine that stuff somewhere. So what do? They blow the tops off of mountains and they pull lithium out of the ground to make batteries. So what are we going to do to protect the environment when we tell the marketplace, hey, government's backing electric batteries. This is it. We found the solution, everyone. Yay, it's great. What do we do when we start blowing the tops off of mountains to pull the minerals that we need out of the ground? Everything's a trade-off. So my ask to the federal government is, hey, stop picking winners and losers. You can't see where all the roads lead. This is a complex issue. Why don't we let the private marketplace come up with some really good solutions for how we can better manage our energy production in this country? So that would be my ask.
Sean, what about you? You had your hand up before.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, if not, we'll go to the next question.
I'll answer.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Ryan Brown, Senate District 18 candidate. If you want to see what a bill does, look at the name and take the opposite. The Inflation Reduction Act is essentially giving firefighters gasoline. You're not going to solve the problem by just printing more money, having more debt, and then counterfeiting more money and sending it off to the people. You specifically called out a moratorium on wind being lifted. I'm perfectly happy to tell the federal government that they have no business in North Carolina politics. So them getting out of North Carolina altogether would be perfect for me. I am a fan of any energy source that people can provide, whether that be nuclear or battery-powered solar, whatever it is. I think the people need to be able to have recourse if there's accidents or incidents, and I believe that the people should then be responsible for their mining or their production of it. The previous person mentioned there needs to be a standardization of batteries. The internet is perfectly standardized, and there's been incredible innovation and solutions, and there's been no government involvement with it necessarily. We don't necessarily need the government to tell us what standards we need for batteries. We need to let people say, wow, this car can go 500 miles. I want to do whatever that does. That's more likely to make a better battery and a better battery pack and a better car than the government saying you must meet this standard that plugs in with this 8-pin connector. People demonize those that make profit. off of energy or in profit in general, but profit is just a measure of consumer satisfaction. So if you have a company that can provide the cleanest energy with the best electric cars and they make $1 trillion, good for them. It's a show of it's a show of what the people want. When the government starts throwing money at stuff, they pick the winners, they pick the losers. They don't necessarily pick the best technology or the technology that the people would choose. Thank you.
All right.
I'm going to move on to a more general question for you. Do you believe that the Department of Environmental Quality is accountable enough to the people here in North Carolina? And how would you like to see the department changed?
That's a tough one. Thank you, Laura.
Can you repeat the question?
Repeat it.
Can you repeat it?
Do you believe that the Department of Environmental Quality is accountable enough to people, not corporations, but to the people of North Carolina? And how would you like to see the department change? If at all. I'll put that caveat up.
I'm gonna, of course, we only have 3 electeds on stage, so and everyone else currently seated and running for re-election. So I'm gonna give y'all a moment, because and the reason why I'm gonna preference this is a very important question to us at Dogwood. My colleague sitting behind me, this DEQ is the center of between them, the Commerce Department and Agricultural Department is the center of where we do a lot of our work. So I want to give y'all a moment to take it in, because we're with the folks who are watching online. They're very concerned about this issue as I'm filtering text messages. So anyone wants to, I'll open it up to those who haven't or who are running for office first, would like to take that question, and I'll go to the electeds. Okay, you want to add on?
Just that a lot of the communities we work with, when they're dealing with new industries coming to the community, they're often talking to DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality, about permits. And so this is where they're voicing their concerns in public hearings. And then that's often kind of like the last line of defense in their mind against, if we don't want this industry here. So that's kind of the question, I think, that's based on that context.
Everybody got that? All right. For those who may have not heard my colleague just online, she just to reframe it, she was just saying that DEQ is the last line of defense that many folks who are in North Carolina have as it relates to permitting or structures as it relates to environmental concerns. So that's where we are. So anyone here, I will take. I see Mr. Alvin. Yes, sir.
Well, actually, Chatham County is where I'm from, what I'm representing or will represent. And we have a problem with dioxin. And so what I'm really saying is we ought to enforce the laws that are on the books. I mean, everybody wants cleaner air and water. I think we could simplify the regulations, but everybody wants clean air and water. And I'd like to be able to drink the water that comes down my road.
Okay. I see you, Ms. White.
No, I actually, when the Manhattan Project was created, some of the waste was buried in Tonawanda, New York, approximately 2 miles from where I lived. It was a radon emitter. They buried it, but then put a bunch of garbage on top of it, okay? Because they wanted to use the land economically. Because they had put garbage on it, and they needed to vent the methane. And with the methane, they also vented the radon. The radon came out of those vents at 200 times the acceptable levels. But it was okay, they said, because by the time it left the dump, it was at acceptable levels. My family had to fight the government. It wasn't even the companies that had done it. The government protects these companies. And what is going on is wrong. So, no, I absolutely have a problem with what's going on. I feel like these agencies are frequently protecting the companies.
Okay, I'm going to get one more from Noah. I'm going to give Mr. Senator Wood. Anyone else that's not? A second. Hands up. Sean, you grab the microphone? No? Okay.
I wasn't going to jump on this one, but I have a very strong opinion about who they represent. And they don't represent the voiceless. They don't represent the people. They represent big corporations. We've seen this over and over and over again, just dealing along the Cape Fear with water. Let's not talk about air quality, but might as well talk about our citizens who live in low-income areas where we put, and they allow it to be put, places of dumping, burning. Just in my district alone, we see it every single day. We see it in Selma, in Kinley, in Micro, in little towns where the populations are poor. And it should never be the final line of defense. This is a state agency. They need to really listen to the taxpayers. Unfortunately, that's not how it is. And one of the biggest things, I heard this story about New York. I want to tell you, my mom worked on a toxic waste site which they turned into a mall. We build schools on dumps. These people allow it. We need to stop it. And as legislators, when we're sitting on Jones Street, we need to work across the line to represent the people, the voiceless. That's my opinion. Thank you. And I'm Wendy LeMay. I'm running in House District 28 in Johnston County.
Representative, I saw your hand. I'm going to go respect to Senator Woodward.
So let's be clear about DEQ. It is full of men and women, professional scientists, researchers who go to work every day trying to do their best for the state of North Carolina. Over the last decade, we have seen the Republican majority decimate that department in ways that you can't even imagine. 34% cut in funding over the last decade, 33% cut in staffing. When I talk about free market, have your boss come tell you that he's taken 34% of your money and a third of your staff and then ask you to do more, because we've asked that department to do more and more as our state has grown. So what we're asking that department to do is just astounding. On top of that, we've limited state salaries of our state employees so that if you have a master's degree, say in biology or environmental science, and you're qualified to hold one of the jobs at DEQ, and you haven't seen your salary go up but just a few points over the last decade, why would you stay? We're finding that we can find young scientists come into this department, but they leave after a few years because they get hired out into the private sector. There's the market for you. We're not competitive for these good scientists. So yes, the department can be accountable to people, and they can do a lot of the kind of things that Wendy Ella was talking about, but we've got to provide that department the resources. I will defend this department in that they've had great leadership over the last 6 years, first by Michael Regan, who's now our EPA secretary, who took over a department, by the way, that lost 20% of its funding and staff over the previous Republican administration in Washington. He's trying to rebuild that department. And now Secretary Elizabeth Beiser, who's done, I think, a great job trying to recruit at least young scientists into the department, given the salaries that we pay. But we have to rebuild that department. When I came to Raleigh, we zeroed out the Stormwater Trust Fund in the first budget that I voted on. Y'all, that's appalling that we zeroed that out. We've built it back slowly, but you can't keep doing that and then say, well, you've got to be accountable. How can they be accountable when they're working as hard as they can work under very tough conditions?
I'm going to go to Representative Baker. Thank you, Senator Wood.
So I want to piggyback on what Senator Woodard has just said. We all know about the Weaver fertilizer fire. That was in not only my district, I evacuated because I was in the evacuation zone. And so I needed to understand, and because I was a principal of an older school, I understood grandfathering in, but I also found out that there were a lot of things that were overlooked, a lot of reports that were not properly filed at the local level, right? So we have to make sure that at every level of government that we're holding people accountable. Because I'll say again, I had to evacuate. The smoke was so thick that you could not see what was on my street. My brother had to evacuate. And so I was very present with the other people that were affected by that. And so I do think that there has to be a balance between hearing from the people and making sure that we hold businesses accountable. But I also know, because I sat on the Regulatory Reform Committee, that we've also got to hold legislators accountable. And so those governmental agencies, sometimes their hands are tied by the legislation that is passed. And so it's important that we make sure that up every level of government, we hold everyone accountable. And then at the highest level, we also hold us accountable for that. And so it is important that we make sure that the people are heard and that decisions are made thoughtfully. But a lot of times those decisions are made long before they ever hit the offices of DEQ. And so we have to make sure that we are understanding of that and continue to be vocal and to continue to exercise our right to vote and exercise our right to hold our elected officials, which I am one of, accountable.
All right. I'm gonna give to one more, and then we'll go to the next question.
I don't think I have too much to add to the really good statements that my colleagues have already made. So I just wanted to underline basically what you just heard.
Let's move on to the question that I think Dogwood Alliance is waiting for me to ask. Let's talk about wood pellets, which this is quickly becoming an area of energy that's a concern for folks out there. So let's just do this as a simple two-part question. First, what is your stance on this particular industry's growth, particularly in our state? And as an elected leader, how would you look to handle the growth of this industry?
So we went to those who weren't holding seated office. I'm going to give it first to those who are holding seated office. And yes, as Loretta said, this is the burning desire question, and this is the crux of all of our work here. So we are very interested. So anyone can take it. Senator Ball, Representative Ball, forgive me.
Again, Cynthia Ball, representing House District 49 and running for re-election. The wood pellet industry is destroying our forest. Is shipping those pellets abroad where they are burned for energy. So we certainly need to find ways to limit and maybe even prevent. I know it's been a controversial issue in a lot of communities because of the hope to open more wood pellet plants. And I know there's a belief that it provides more jobs than otherwise. But it is damaging to our environment and damaging to our forest. So I'm opposed to certainly allowing it to expand.
Thank you.
Because frequently it is in areas of the underrepresented populations, which too often happens in our state.
Thank you. Representative Baker or Senator, I'm giving it to you folks before I open up to. Okay.
Well, I think, Representative Ball summed it up. I've heard several of my colleagues up here say that, that private industry will work itself out, that they can figure it out. I would employ you to watch a series on the History Channel called The 5 Men That Built America. And it really outlines how abuse and greed and just abuse of power, abuse of people, really caused a need for regulation. And I think that anything that is going to destroy the environment has to have oversight. And we have to think creatively about alternative ways to meet the needs without destroying our environment. And as one of the gentlemen said, people are doing it every day. So we don't have to destroy the environment to provide fuel for countries overseas. We can think strategically about how we can do that. Because I used to jokingly say before I had a grandbaby that I want to sit on wooden benches at the park because those metal ones with those little holes are not comfortable when you're a woman of a certain size. So we have to do things that are mindful of the generations that are coming behind us.
Senator Woodard?
Just think about this for a second. It's an industry that takes healthy live trees, converts it into dirty energy that we won't even burn in the United States. We have to export it out. We're taking our dirty energy and sending it overseas to countries that don't have the kind of controls that we have on our air. We're far better off investing in clean, renewable energies of the future, not continuing to invest. And again, these are often in communities that need the jobs. That part we understand, but this is not a sustainable kind of energy that we're investing in. We take the double whammy because we're taking down those clean, healthy trees. We need to be investing in these communities with the renewable energy sources that we've talked about earlier, be that in the Governor's Clean Energy Plan, in the Inflation Reduction Act, and other efforts that we've undertaken in the last 4 or 5 years.
Thank you. I'm going to go first here to your colleague, and then you can come right after. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Again, Matt Lazak, Senate 14. So,
Well, Mike, yeah, then
sorry,
sorry,
my bad.
because I wanted to acknowledge his hand first. Go ahead.
Chris Mizell, NC House 38. I just want to say, I think we all want the same thing here, right? Like, I would wager that everyone here wants clean water, clean air, green spaces, that kind of thing. The question is, how do we get there, right? So, in this society, in this country, we don't have pure capitalism, we don't have pure socialism. We have this kind of mixture, right, between big government and big corporations in bed with each other. Representative, I'm sorry, I'm missing everybody's name, but you made a great point about some men in the past who have abused their power. I've heard people talk about monopolies tonight, and all of that comes from government and business getting in bed with each other. It does not, it's not the result of free markets. And so government, to the extent that it exists, should protect property rights. That should be the only thing that it does. And so to the extent that you pollute the air, you pollute the environment, right, as soon as it leaves your property, there should be recourse. But we shouldn't look to Washington, D.C., we shouldn't look to Raleigh to solve all of our problems. These are complex questions, right? Science changes, we learn, but the more free we are when it comes to research and education and learning about these problems, people act in their own rational self-interest to solve these problems. And we need to let individuals act in their own rational self-interest and vote with their money. If a company is going to pollute the environment and people learn about it, they're not going to support that company. And so I think somebody made a great point earlier about essentially if somebody's going to make profits, it's because of consumers being willing to spend their money supporting it. So that's what I would say.
Before you finish, because I want to clarify something, because I understand your stance from libertarianism, but I want you to understand kind of the more context of the issue here. We're talking about an industry that is completely subsidized by federal government that cuts. Before I just want you to get it all before you, because I want you to understand this is the what we do. So that literally cuts down trees here to ship them overseas. So there is no market here for that recourse. The market would be those who live there who are breathing in the air that is being let out from those stacks. So I understand in concept what you're saying, but I just want to give it to you again. Is your position still the same that it would work out its way with that framework of what we're dealing with?
In the subsidies.
Okay, that's your answer. I just want to go into subsidies.
Government shouldn't pick and choose winners, but a reason that they would have the power to stay in business is because of government propping them up and giving them that power.
Okay, just want to make sure I get it clear. You get clear. Go ahead, man.
okay, yeah, thank you. So My understanding is with this pellet industry that a lot of these companies, I think there's one or two that are leasing the land to harvest the trees from private individuals. So my question is, there's an incentive for that private individual to sell the timber on their property, and I believe they should have that right. What happens with the trees afterwards? They're processed in a plant that pollutes the environment. That's in the local area. I understand all that too, right? And then they ship the pellets overseas. But I keep coming back to these are private landowners, and they have a right to utilize that land to their benefit. What I would suggest is that we learn a lesson from the 60s and the 70s when we decided that government was going to bring the hammer down on everyone and stop them from doing things with their private property, like the Endangered Species Act, for example. There's an unintended consequence there. If you see an endangered species on your property, you shoot, shovel, and shut up, because you have no incentive to report that endangered species to the government because you know you're going to be hit with regressive regulations. I think I've seen Nature Conservancy and a lot of other private groups working with landowners in a lot of places to provide incentives to use their property for an economic benefit. So we need to work together to offer alternatives to these landowners. Instead of hitting them with regulations and saying, hey, you can't do this with your property, they'll probably just work around that or find another way, or there'll be a big lobbying industry that will go lobby all the people in Raleigh and DC to get around the rules, because that's what we do in politics. If you write a rule, you create a lobbying industry to get an exception to the rule or to vote in your favor. So my suggestion would be to Dogwood that we need to work together to find good market-based alternatives to work together with these landowners so they can have an alternative to selling their timber to these companies. I'm sure there's a market somewhere that we can work together with them to find a better alternative. And that's what my prerogative would be.
Okay, I got one more, and then I got to go. Well, Wendy's hand was up, so Wendy, if you're okay, I'm gonna let you go, and then I'm gonna go to Wendy.
They can go.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Ryan Brown, Senate District 18 candidate. First off, end the subsidies. Whenever the federal government is involved, it distorts the market, and it produces outcomes that are not what the people necessarily want. When you have ownership of land and you destroy that land, it becomes valueless. So there is a inverse incentive to just destroy the land. That being said, when you cut away the trees and then you have a short-term lease and you check out and you're gone, there's a quick incentive to destroy the land. So the solution here is end the subsidies, make sure all of this is done on privately owned land, and then thirdly, because it is a serious issue, there are pollutants that are released because of this. There has to be some sort of recourse for the people. So the previous question, which I didn't get to answer, was essentially, is this agency accountable? I don't think any government agency is accountable. So there are government agencies that are setting limits to what's accountable, letting the people do what they want underneath that, or with an exception or with a permit, and the people are getting screwed. So end the subsidies, allow recourse for people who are affected.
Thank you. Wendy?
First of all, my name is Wendy LMA. I'm running to represent an area that this affects very strongly. My district backs up to Sampson County, which is a hotbed right now on these issues. I am a Native American, Creek Indian. The area of Meadow and Benson in the southernmost part of Johnston County. We have people who do not have alternatives. They're starving to death. Big companies come in, say, look at all those beautiful trees. We'll give you money for them. Well, we need alternatives. We need solutions. I live on 6.5 acres outside of Micro, North Carolina, and my farm was clear cut when I bought it. It isn't now. I started a replanting program. I did that because I'm an environmentalist. I did that because I know the future of my Mother Earth is not replaceable. These lands where landowners they have a responsibility to find it better to the next generation than they got it. And clear cutting is a terrible situation. And it should never be because of money or because of a pandemic or because they can't afford to feed themselves or pay taxes. We need programs. And if I get elected to go to Raleigh, I will make sure those programs are in place. It is shameful that we take healthy trees, cut them down, send them to another country to make pellets, or make the pellets here in ourselves, and then send those to the UK to burn. That is ridiculous. There's alternatives, and we need to live by those alternatives because we ain't making another Mother Earth. And I'll tell you, when you look at the carbon footprint of southern Johnston and northern Sampson County, look at the quality of water and air since this has been going on, you will get not just emotional, you'll cry. Because we are destroying land. I know of a story. We had a lot of rain, and this gentleman had had his farm completely cleared of trees so he could pay his mortgage, his taxes, and feed his family. Guess what happened when that rain came? There was no trees to stop it. His house floated downriver. We have people still who were affected by hurricanes living in trailers and motels because we clear-cut eastern North Carolina, and we need to stop it. And we need to be responsible landowners. This land was given to us. We were blessed with it, and we need to preserve it. And big corporations who are doing this need to leave. Find someplace else. Go to the UK and cut their trees down. Because I'm going to tell you that my family in the UK, who are members of Parliament, would never, ever, ever, ever allow it to happen. But yet we here allow it to happen.
We're gonna move past this question. Loretta has another one. I'm gonna give it to Keisha because I know Representative Ball, you got to check out. We'll come back to it. Keisha.
So Keisha Sandage, running for Senate District 34. So we make politics so difficult to understand, and the people who we are making decisions for are just everyday average citizens. You got to look at the cost versus the benefit of any single thing that you are thinking and deciding upon. And that's missing in a lot of things that are being decided upon today. We're not thinking about the average person. When I first stood up here and introduced myself, I talked about getting into this for my family, for other students. And when we think about things that are causing our environment to literally diminish in front of our eyes, like all you have to do is think about the health and safety of the people you signed up to represent. All that being said, my answer would be no. I wouldn't support something that we don't even use here that takes away from the health and safety of North Carolinians.
I want to ask you a question. Should you get elected into office? Because part of being an elected official is actually dealing with your constituents and communicating with your constituents. So how do you envision the state's climate policy changing to respond to increased awareness about climate change? And particularly, how would you address this to low-resource communities and communities of color so that they understand why these climate decisions are being made at the state level?
Another hard one from Loretta. I'm going to go ahead and give space. I think last time we started off with those who weren't. So I'll give to those who are seated right at the current moment and are running for re-election. Anyone want to take that? And then I'm going to come back.
You want incumbents first?
Huh?
You want incumbents first?
Yes. Yes, I'll say incumbents. I'm sorry, sir.
I'm happy to go on this one. We have a lieutenant governor who says we should not teach science in the first 3 years of school. Y'all, that's embarrassing. I tutor in a third grade class in Durham 2 mornings a week. And if you want to talk about reaching low wealth citizens and being able to communicate the importance of things like climate change. We don't turn our back on science. We teach more science to these folks. It is incumbent on all of us, whether we're elected officials, whether we're agencies, whether we are the energy providers, to make sure that we're always communicating and offering programs to people. Representative Ball mentioned one of the shortcomings of House Bill 951, and there was some shortcomings in that bill. One of them was the fact that we did not extend policies to help our low-wealth citizens with their energy programs as much as we could, because it's often these lower wealth citizens who have the worst insulation, the biggest drafts in their homes, and they are paying exorbitant energy fees because they don't have those that those of us of greater means have. And it's incumbent on us to communicate those programs. But we don't turn our back on science, science education, and communicating, particularly with our children.
Representative Ball, Representative Baker, I want to give you space.
Well, as I told you, I need to leave.
Yes, ma'am.
But I do want to agree with Senator Woodard that there's a great need in our country and in our state to make sure that we adhere to the teaching of science and not call it fake news. And too many times that I hear about that. And in regards to what we can do to educate our constituents and the other residents of our state, I regularly hold town halls, whether they be virtual or in the community. That is, and having topics like this is another way, and having a representative from Dogwood Alliance there to talk about issues. So I would, at this point, like to invite you to a town hall in my district, and I would look forward to it. But I do have to leave, and I apologize because this is wonderful discussion.
No, thank you very much.
But I have another event. I've got to at least show up. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating.
Thank you, Representative Ball. Representative Baker?
Yes, so as I said before, 27 years in education, the majority of time has been in highly impacted communities. And I've seen firsthand where our families live in substandard housing, right? And they need advocates. And so I think it's important, again, even though we hold state offices, it is incumbent of us to work with local leadership and elected officials to ensure that the people who are closest to the issues are held accountable for ensuring that they are taking care of the people that vote them into office. Again, I live in one of those highly impacted communities by choice, so that I am close to the issues that are affected by. Many of my families knock on my door. It's not sometimes we look at legislation at the state level and we forget that, again, the uniqueness of what people are facing in different counties cannot always be legislated by a blanket bill or laws. And so we've got to work with our local our local elected officials to ensure that we are holding ourselves accountable for those that don't always know how to navigate that. And so when we talk about getting them information, we can't do it from a middle class perspective. We've got to understand, how do we reach them? And a lot of times, if we're not present, we will deal with an issue from a very middle class perspective, and oftentimes the very people that we're trying to help, we completely miss it because we're not close enough to the issue to be able to address it.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Wendy, and then if anyone else has a hand, I'll take Sasha.
I live it every day. I am a 100% disabled American veteran who lives on a very fixed income, who lives in a 1930 house, who has Duke Energy Progress holding us hostage. And that's what they're doing. They come to low wealth areas. Areas like Johnston County, Selma, Smithfield, they come to these areas like Kinley and Benson. They know they don't bring programs. They know that the more ineffective a house is, the more money the local utilities will make. I have to agree with the senator. Our lieutenant governor doesn't believe in science. He's called me filth. He's called me names. He sat in a pulpit and preached about women running churches. That, in case you'd like to know, was addressed to me. I'm the president of a denomination. He has come to my county and he has spit his hatred across the county. He has never once walked into a low wealth, high poverty neighborhood and knocked a door and asked someone how can they be helped. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that our houses are winterized, that they can get windows, that someone will help them with their fuel bills so they're not burning trash to stay warm or kerosene that causes their house to catch fire. This is not 1930 North Carolina. This is 2022. There is federal and state programs that should be available to low income and low wealth homeowners or renters. We miss the renters. Their landlord's collecting a check. They're paying a utility bill. I had a lady show me her utility bill when I was knocking doors on Saturday, and I thought, that must be like 5 months. And I said to her, how long have you had this bill? She said, that's last month. It was $780. She lives in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, wooden house in East Smithfield. We should be ashamed of ourselves. We treat our citizens less than third world citizens, and we need to stop.
Thank you, Wendy. Sean, I'll come to you, and then we're going to go to the next question.
Yeah, sounds good. I stand with Senator representatives and Wendy. I'm talking about this, especially with science and demonization of science. That's just unacceptable moving forward. It hits me personally. I'm an engineer. That's just what I do. So people don't know what they don't know. And that's probably why this election is very, very important for North Carolina when it comes to fully funding schools and making sure we do allow those opportunities out there. When we're talking about offering programs to help out houses, homes, wherever people live, again, we need to do better outreach right there. I love the idea that the representative gave, door knocking, getting out there. We need to do a better job. That's what I do in my community, and that's what we need to be doing and continuing to do. Again, it goes back. People may not know. So what do we do to do better outreach? What do we do to actually put ourselves out there? We have to do better. And this election, I'm very concerned if we don't make the right decisions, if we don't fully fund our schools, if we don't help everyone out from the east to the west, we'll have dire consequences, not today or tomorrow, but for the next 5, 10, and 20 years. So we got to do better. And once elected to the North Carolina General Assembly, I will continue to fight for that to make sure that we're all moving in the right direction. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sean.
Hi, Eric Davis for NC House 78. Basically what they've said, I mean, education, that's how we actually, especially in schooling, so that the younger generations can understand it properly. And yes, we do have programs that can help the poor minority areas, but A, we need more of them. But B, a lot of them don't even know about them. We need to actually get the information out there. And an issue with that is, especially in rural places in North Carolina, is they don't have access to proper information gathering. So there are areas that don't have access to high-speed internet at all. There are places where they do, but it's very spotty. And I know the governor is working on trying to expand that, and that's part of what I'm running on, that it's not just what, us being able to go out there, because we can't be everywhere all the time, but expanding the access so that people can be able to find the information, so they can use the resources we have and the resources that we can expand on in the future. And to anyone watching, it's not just a governmental issue. Science communicating is what I feel is one of the greatest callings in life. So, and that's not so much from the political aspect. That's the people, the experts who understand it, who can tell others. Like, I know Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's what they do. And so, if you can do that in your own communities, that can be a building block for the rest of us at the House, the Senate, the state, the federal levels, so we can build on that with enhancing those resources.
Thank you. You want to go to your next question? Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. We're gonna
Question to you. Okay. Before we open it up to audience questions for folks that are watching it, I wanted to ask you a pure political question, not one of our environmental questions. For decades, North Carolina has been known throughout the country for the fact we have a really hard time doing redistricting here. This has been both under Republicans and Democrats. Our maps go to court, they go all the way up to the US Supreme Court and back again. If you are elected into office, how are you going to work to fix this?
I saw two hands go, so I'm gonna go Wendy, and then I'll come back around. Go ahead.
There's only one way to fix this, and that is to have a citizens commission on redistricting. And it has to be a true commission made up of equal parts of the R, the D, and the U. And they have to have guidance, because when we choose our own districts, regardless if we're the Democrat Party doing it or the Republican Party doing it, we are now making it an unequal playing ground. We only can fix that one way, and that is with a citizens redistricting commission. And I made a recommendation, I made a statement which is available on my website at wendyelma.com that says it should consist of a minimum of 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 2 unaffiliates, and 1 representative of a party other than the Republican and Democratic Party. And they should sit together with the guidance given to them by map makers and create districts that are fair and reasonable. It's something that we don't have. We have very blue districts, we have very red districts. We need to let citizens draw those maps. And until we do that, we are just going to keep blaming each other, as we have done in North Carolina for 80 years. Thank you.
Well, you can't blame the libertarians for that one. We haven't drawn a map in a long time. Ryan Brown, candidate for Senate 18. If you go check out the LPNC, Libertarian Party of North Carolina website, we have a platform where we call for independent redistricting. If you look back, long history of up and down the courts all over the place, people have been arguing you can or you cannot do it based on race, based on voting pattern, based on all these different things. But if you look at why those districts are so important, why does it matter? Why does it matter that there are 65 versus 66 people? If you look at this, it's all a numbers game. Both parties agree, I'll trade you one here, I'll take you one there. It's straight up numbers. They do it because the power that they get from being elected. So the Democrats are not going to win, but they fought and tried and invented some interesting redistricting theories with independent lawyers, and they basically drew a map that said, well, we may not win the majority, but we probably won't give up a supermajority. And that's all it is. So the reason we have redistricting problems is all because the power that the government has in our life and what each single vote will mean to the people who want to wield that power. Thank you.
Did you first? Are you sure? Chris Mizell, Libertarian candidate, NC House 38. Ryan stole a little bit of my thunder there, but I was going to say the same thing. We should have an independent board that, works together to, get the districts drawn. But again, why is it such a big issue? Same thing with the controversy over the 2020 election, whether you believe it was stolen or not stolen. In 2016, was it legitimate? Was it not legitimate? Every 4 years, it's the end of the world, whether the Republican wins or whether the Democrat wins. Same concept here, and it's because there's too much power in Raleigh, there's too much power in Washington, D.C., and it shouldn't matter as much as it does. My platform is to return power back to individuals, communities, and families where it always belonged. Don't look to the government to solve all of your problems. Thank you.
So gerrymandering is legal, but just because something's legal doesn't mean you should do it. The Republicans look horrible for what they've done, and in the past, the Democrats did it too. I do agree that there needs to be an independent citizens review board. There's currently a lawsuit for other things where the independents are suing, the unaffiliated voters are suing. So we need to get them on those boards, and we also need libertarians. Unaffiliated voters in the state actually outnumber Republicans and Democrats.
Did anyone else want to jump on? Okay,
Eric Davis, NC House 78. I may be a substitute teacher, but by trade I'm a geographer. So gerrymandering is something that always pains me heavily to see, because you can make a map say anything you want. An independent, having a committee that is as nonpartisan as possible is needed. We need that. We need to stop gerrymandering as much as possible. But I would like to have a geographer or two on there, since they know how to actually understand it. But there's an issue where I can go into ArcGIS and delineate North Carolina and split it up into all the districts. But in order to do that, I have to put set parameters in there. So if we're going to do these committees, I feel that there needs to be a lot of transparency on what exactly the parameters were, so that we can actually understand why the map looks the way it does, and far more transparent than we do now, because nowadays they say that they did one thing, but there's not really a whole lot of oversight, and did they actually follow those rubrics? So I would push for the requirement that the actual data that was used for it, the parameters are open for anyone to view, so that it can have independent research done on it to make sure that it was not gerrymandered as we normally have.
I see Keisha's hand. I'm very curious from the incumbents on the panel today. But go ahead. No, Keisha, please.
Sure, I totally agree with the independent review committee. However, I think it needs to be something like jury duty. So the people who are selected for jury duty, they don't know they have it. We don't know what profession they are necessarily, but it gives that person and the entire community the opportunity to be a part of selecting where the maps are drawn. And I also think that there needs to be an overseer, like a GIS type committee, that helps them to understand maps and helps them to understand locations. But I don't think that needs to be in the hands of Democrats or Republicans or unaffiliates. It needs to be random.
We're going to go to the audience questions, but I want to, before we pass, is everybody, because gerrymandering is a very big, important issue here in North Carolina, so I'm very curious.
And it's very real.
Yes.
I'll just keep it short, sweet, to the point. Representation matters. We need a nonpartisan committee setup that is just hands down. I hear a lot of Republican, Democrat this. it just has to happen for proper representation here in North Carolina. As our demographics change, we need to make sure that everyone gets proper, legitimate, legal representation.
Everybody okay on the Jerry? Oh, all right. So we're gonna at this point, if my lovely host says she's okay with her questions, we're gonna shift. I'm gonna ask my colleague Emily, who works with powerful voice, who works with all of our communities out in Eastern North Carolina. She's gonna filter the questions from the audience, and as the secondary voice for us or also from those online. I think there's another microphone if you guys have. I appreciate it. So you can just go ahead and put it in Emily's hands. And Emily, you can go ahead and ask the questions and we'll go kind of round robin style. Anybody that wants to take it, just lift your hand as you have. And I thank you all for being so gracious up until this point. The hope is that we can get this in very quickly because we do want to proceed to move out of here in the next 30 so minutes. All right. Emily, you can go ahead and stand so the folks can see you and then ask the question as you think.
So we've got quite a few questions that came in, so I'm going to just start at the top and then try to read through them and make sure we don't repeat too much. And the very first one is about 5 questions in one, so I might even break it up a bit, so it's not too much. And I might even just start with the first part of this question. And it doesn't say, it's not listing who asked them, but I'm assuming they're just coming in from the online audience. How will you work to protect impoverished and people of color communities from environmental injustices? And then there's a couple other, I'll read the next 2. Specifically, will you oppose the Mountain Valley Pipeline? Will you stop CAFOs, digesters, and their distribution of hog feces onto people's homes? So I'll read that again. I'm guessing this is coming from someone who's living with some of these issues. How will you work to protect impoverished and people of color communities from environmental injustices? Specifically, will you oppose the Mountain Valley Pipeline? Will you stop CAFOs, digesters, and their distribution of hog feces onto people's homes?
I saw you grab the microphone, Wendy.
You saw me grab the microphone. I'm Wendy LMA. I'm running in House District 28. I will repeat this over and over again. No more pipelines. We don't need them, especially since they don't serve us. We had a gas pipeline that was going to run right 150 feet from my house, and we fought it, and we fought it, and we fought it, and it stopped. We cannot allow communities of color to be the dumping ground for North Carolina. We went through redlining for years. It is a horrible situation when they want to bring and dump trash, hog waste, oh my God, diesel fuel, I mean, just the things that come in my little district scare me half to death. And it really scares me is when the people don't even know what's happening. So we need to do this through education. We need to educate communities. We need to show them other alternatives like community gardens, planting of trees, making their neighborhoods more beautiful. And you know, I found this over the years that when you take pride in your community no longer becomes a dumping ground. When you stand up and you fight back, when somebody wants to put in a factory in your backyard just because you're a person of color. And I know this quite well, because even though I look white, I'm not. I know what they did to our families, to the Native Americans. They're doing it to people of color today. My son is biracial. My grandchildren are biracial. And this has to stop. And it only can stop when we, as candidates and elected officials, stand up to be the voice for the voiceless.
All right, I got one. I saw, okay, I see. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and give it to D on that end first, and then I'll come back to you. Sure.
So typically pipelines are, in order to create them, you have to use a tool from the government called eminent domain. If we stopped using eminent domain, we wouldn't have these pipelines, and they leak. In North Dakota, the government turned water cannons on the people who were protesting, okay? These pipelines, they tend to leak after 30 years, and there's no plan to deal with that 30 years later. So the use of eminent domain is completely unacceptable. I'm not familiar with this bill. I don't know if it's being used here, but it most likely is. Thank you.
Yes. Ryan Brown, Senate District 18 candidate. I agree with the eminent domain is a huge issue in this regard. Essentially, it allows the government to come in and steal your land and then use it for whatever they deem appropriate. So, when the specific question of what to do with the hog farm waste and pollution, if you are living in an area and someone comes in next to it and starts polluting, you should have a claim against them. You should be able to sue them and make them pay damages and get an injunction. When it comes to pipelines, when they use eminent domain to take your land, the person may actually want the pipeline there because it'll affect them, but they might want to lease the land, or they might want to sell their land because they're hard on money. But the government comes in and they insert themselves into the issue and they distort the situation. And so it doesn't allow people the freedom to either say, yes, you can use my land, or no, you cannot use my land. When it comes to working with poor or disadvantaged or people of color communities, I think it's a problem that affects all of our communities, because the government has the right to come into any area and say that they own your land. And so while it might disproportionately affect disenfranchised or communities of color, the issue needs to be taken together by all people to understand what the real problem is and to come up with a solution that suits us all. Thank you.
I'll go ahead, and then I'm gonna go to Keisha. Go ahead, as I can.
Eric Davis, House District 78. One issue with the eminent domain is the Supreme Court has held many times that as long as a private owner retains a large majority of their rights, they can actually have some of their rights a little bit skewed. So there might be some issue with trying to do that. But can I just say that I hate NIMBY, or the not in my backyard syndrome, because it really affects those that are in poor minority areas, because the people who can afford to fight are the ones that end up not having these noxious developments near them. And if you want to create jobs, how about we look into trying to get proper representation so that the places that can't afford to fight to keep these businesses out actually have proper representation, so that they can actually have a voice instead of being stuck with not being able to do anything. Because if you're in a poor minority area and a hog farm comes in, there's nothing you can really do to fight against them. And the noxious fumes from it, the sound, the runoff, it's not something that people can adequately deal with. And many times they end up not being able to live properly because they have medical issues that are due to especially due to the feces and the runoff. And if there's no way that they can fight against it because they do not have the money or a representation, then there's nothing that's really going to be done for them, at least not in the short term. So again, you want to create a job? How about we create a job for a position, create a position that can actually represent those people?
I got Keisha, and then we're gonna go to the next question.
I want to speak specifically to this person if they are experiencing just not being heard and feeling unsafe, because that's what I heard. I spoke earlier about it being over 25 years before a person of color had been on the Board of Education in my county that's right next to the biggest city in North Carolina, biggest county in North Carolina. And, people have got to see themselves represented somewhere. And I encourage that person to be that one to step up, asking questions like those that we just heard, very articulated, very educated. That tells me that person is experiencing this and knows about it. So to that person, get involved if you're not already in government. Be that voice for the people who are like you and who need that representation and don't have those voices. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And I'll extend this courtesy. If you don't know the first step of getting involved, please feel free to reach out to me. My phone number is 980-434-1255. I have been in your shoes. I didn't even know how to file to run for office. I was scared to ask that question. And, being a person of color, people tend to think that we don't have problems. Our lives are just as simple as the next person. And, that's not the case. But I can't tell you that because it takes away from who I am as a person and how I am looked at. I become the angry person sometimes. So again, specifically to that person, I hear you. I understand what you are going through. Feel free to reach out to me if you are wanting to know how to get involved and how to protect your space.
All right. I'm going to go ahead. Emily, to the next question.
Yeah, and I'm trying to read through these and pull out things that we might not have answered already. And what I'm finding is kind of just like what I heard you say, a lot of people are sharing their experiences. So I'll just read a couple things and then I'll try to pull out a question. So someone wrote, race and poverty intersect to increase vulnerability to sea level rise. A 2021 academic study revealed that in the Carolinas, low-income Black communities are already experiencing greater inland flooding. The most economically deprived and racially segregated communities are also experiencing the effects of sea level rise, including more frequent tidal inundation and low-lying flooding. Inland flooding is 7 times more likely to occur in low-income Black communities compared to high-income white communities. And then the question tied to that was about the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which we've already asked, but I just wanted to share some of the comments that are coming in. And then let's see, I wanted to go back to, there's a question I read up here. So this is a theme I'm kind of seeing in a lot of the questions that are coming in, is we've kind of asked earlier about kind of positions on future industries or new industries, but a lot of people are asking, and I'll just read this question, what are you planning on doing about these dirty industries impacting our communities, causing harm to our residents? For example, asthma, cancer, nosebleeds, headaches, loud noises from the plants, truck traffic, dust from trucks, and trains not being covered. Don't you know this is bad business practice for our communities? And so I want to just kind of add my own context here as a little bit different than some of the other questions we've asked, because I know in my work with communities, I feel like we're often coming up against a wall. It's like people are dealing with these issues, and in our Impacted Communities Coalition, we've met with elected officials, we've met with the Commerce Department, we've been trying to meet with the governor, we've met with DEQ, and it often feels like people are saying, well, try this or meet with this person. So I think the question here is asking, we're living with these impacts, and the question is, what are you planning on doing about these dirty industries impacting our communities?
All right. I saw one hand from.
I don't know how to say this any easier. Y'all, we have got to get out and vote. I asked my colleague next to me, are there any Republican incumbents here? Do we realize who has the majority power in the General Assembly? Those folks aren't here answering these questions and coming out to show you that they are working for you. If there is any way for things to continue happening, you got to look at who's allowing those things to continue to happen. If I say nothing else tonight that nobody hears, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on politically. What matters is that you care about people, you get involved in the things that are affecting your community. And if it is affecting your community, it's affecting your livelihood. Get involved, vote, become a registered voter. If you are not, talk to your kids at night at the dinner table about politics. This stuff controls our lives whether we think it or not. So either you're going to get involved or it's going to make the decisions for you.
Before I go to this other table, Senator Whoop, you want to say something? I'm going to go to Wendy. Oh, you go? Okay, go to Wendy.
I like to talk a lot. Maybe it's because I like to hear my voice. But I keep repeating the same thing over. I have a major truck line called Interstate 95 running right through our district. District 28 is where I want to be your next member of this North Carolina State House. Why? On one side of it, I have a train track with trains that go through 24 hours a day that aren't covered. They are sometimes leaking fuel, leaking unknown things. We have trailer parks right next to the railroad. We have an interstate where at least 5 times a week we have some type of incident, be it a fire in a truck, a motor vehicle accident. We need to take care of those people. And I have to agree with you. Today is a special day. Today is a day to make sure that you are registered to vote. It's not hard to get registered in North Carolina. You can do it online. You need to be registered. Your voice, as one of my dearest mentors said to me, John Lewis, is the most important thing that you have, and when you're silent, the other side always wins.
All right. I'm sorry, Alvin, go ahead, and then I'm going to go to Reverend.
I'm not an incumbent, but I may be the only Republican here. I'm not sure. There are very few of us. So let me just speak to that. And I'm speaking as a Republican, and I'm speaking probably for all of them. A strong economy will fix all these problems. If you have a very, very strong economy, a rising tide lifts all boats. And these people can get very good jobs, live in very nice communities, get away from these pipelines and all the other things. But just in general, that's what a Republican says. A strong economy is the best solution to all these problems.
I just want to touch on one thing here. Sean Ewing at North Carolina Senate 25. Dirty industries affecting communities, to paraphrase, right? How to address that. We're hearing our vote matters. Absolutely. We're hearing the senator, our elected representative, saying DEQ is underfunded. Guess who helps fund them? General Assembly. Your vote matters. We're talking about dirty industries affecting communities. Wood pellet industries are usually built in low-income communities, so you get the dust, you get the debris, you get all that stuff going into the local communities. Guess who can regulate that? General Assembly. Your vote matters. And we're talking about redistricting also, where we actually want to make sure that your vote matters, you have proper representation. Again, your vote matters this year. All these things that we're talking about can be legislated, can be assisted, can be moved forward. It's not going to happen today or tomorrow. I'm not going to guarantee that. I'm not going to throw that out there. But we got to stick with this. And this is going to be a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year thing down the line. I'm asking for 15 minutes of your time this year. Stop by early voting. Starts October 20th. Election days, November 8th. Your vote matters.
So earlier on, I said that even though you're elected to a district, it is incumbent upon you to know about the issues that you're being expected to vote on around the state. And so when the bill came up about the hog lagoons, I knew nothing about that. So I needed to go and do some research. And I needed to talk to the people that were affected by that. But here's the issue. They're afraid because that is the industry that feeds their families. And so it's very easy for us to say, oh, you got to stand up. You got to be courageous. You got to be bold. When in reality, you need that check to protect your families. So again, it's easy when your bills are paid, you got 2 suits, $2, and 2 cars. But the reality of it is, if you've never been homeless, if you've never been on welfare, you've never been underemployed, it's easy to say that. We were recently voted the #1 state for businesses and industry. But that is not going to necessarily translate to people having a better quality of life. So, to the young lady that asked the question, if you go back and look at the debate, I spoke up about that. And if you go back and look at the debate on the budget, I spoke up about that. You don't get to tell me what's good for me when you haven't even consulted with me about what my needs are. So for those of us, see, I don't expect to be here long because I'm not going to be quiet. And like I said, 27 years in education in highly impacted communities, that's how I got here. It was challenging people who were in position to make decisions because I had the wherewithal to do it. So now in Raleigh, I don't get quiet. And when I don't understand a bill, I ask questions. And so some of what we've talked about today, I'm not afraid to say, I gotta go do some research because I didn't necessarily know all the answers. And I'm not afraid to say that. And so we can't be expected to know all things about everything that plagues people in this state. But what we can commit to doing is if you don't know, if I don't know, I'm going to do the work. Because you only get one time to bring something to me that I don't know about, and then I got to go to work. Because in the end, I'm elected by a district, but I represent everyone in this state. One vote, one voice. And so know this, I don't expect to be here long because I do think cycles occur. And that if you stay too long, then you're out of touch because you're insulated from the things that people are affected by. And so to the young lady's question, before I got saved, I was a fighter. Now that I am saved, I learned how to fight with my words and the powers and the tools that I've been given. And so that's what I would say. I will always do the work to make sure that I'm the voice for the people that may not have a voice in that room.
Thank Jesus for your saving. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you. Ryan Brown, Senate District 18. I'm going to speak to the second part of her question there. What would you do about future industries and new industries coming in? As I said previously, if you already are somewhere and someone else comes in and starts polluting your area, you have a claim against them. If you look back in Supreme Court or court history in North Carolina and in the country, there was a type of case called a nuisance case, where a little old lady doing laundry would put her whites out to dry on the line, and they would dry normally and dry fine. But then a new industry came in and polluted them. So she'd put them out, and they'd be white and wet, and then you take them back in, and they're gray and dry, right? That's obviously a problem. You can't have that. But if you look at the court history, they would say, you're right, you have damages, and then an injunction. Now with the invention of the EPA and government regulations, there is an acceptable limit, and so these people have the right to pollute, and people don't have a shield because the government is protecting the companies. And if one of the other specifically mentioned points was the uncovered trucks. If you think about that, I have 85 going through my district. I know 95 was mentioned earlier. If you look at who would you say owns the roads, well, the people don't own the roads. The government basically owns the roads. And so the government is providing no recourse to these people who are driving on the roads. If you had private ownership of roads, the people who maintained the road would be liable for the damages if they wanted to put a road in. So say they want to put in a new highway through the state. They have to put the highway in. They have to do studies to realize ahead of time that there could be consequences. And then when people say, hey, I used to have this environmental benefit and now it's a negative, they would then have the right to make that claim because they were there first. So government is getting involved in all aspects of our life, and they're shielding the companies who they allow to build in our state. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna go to D, and then we're gonna get one more question from Emily, and then we're gonna bring it to a close. I want to give you folks an opportunity to readdress what you're running for. Go ahead, D.
Thank you. I had a house on the Cape Fear River, or not on the river, but in the Cape Fear River Basin. And I would weekly get notifications that our water was contaminated with Gen X. It's really nice to get a notification, but the truth is what we really needed was water. It wasn't a big deal for me, but there are thousands and thousands of people who can't afford to go and buy cases and cases of bottled water. The government knew who was putting Gen X in the water. They knew where it was coming from, and they knew it was there, and they knew it wasn't safe, and they knew it couldn't be boiled away, and they knew it couldn't be filtered out. People shouldn't have to wait to vote to the next election cycle. The company should have had to provide water to all those people. And maybe another industry will come in, but I assure you, if when a company makes a mistake, if they have to clean it up or go bankrupt, they will stop making mistakes that pollute. If we had caused and put an injunction to force them to provide water, you wouldn't see this pollution continuing. So the companies need to make restitution, and they need to mitigate their impact. And that would stop companies from polluting because it wouldn't be cost effective. Thank you.
I wasn't being rude, sorry. They were informing me that the middle two mics may go dead, so just in case you guys know, you please use the other two or share them just for purposes. Thank you. Thank you, Dee, for your comment. One more, and then are you done?
think in the interest of time, because I'm sure people want to give closing statements, and I would offer, if it's okay with you, Denzel, I'm sure we can email these questions to y'all, just if you're curious kind of what's on people's minds. And just to sum it up, I would say the heart that I'm reading in this thread is, people want to know, when is it going to be about them, I think is the sense. People are hurting, people are living with pollution. And as you said, people feel like they're not being heard. And, I think we all understand that politics are the reality, and it's a tough situation, but I think people are they're out there, they're in their communities, they're doing the work, and they want to know, when are they going to see change? And then there's a lot of specific questions, as you might expect, about the wood pellet industry. So I think there's a lot of people who are living with the harm of this industry, and I do understand that there are regulations in place, but no level of pollution is safe. So it doesn't matter if it's under the legal limit. It doesn't matter, that there are controls in place. When these chemicals are going into the air, they are harming people. So I think we'd be happy to send
I'm
these.
gonna pose a question. I guess moderator privilege, because it was not just myself, but I want to also give credit to my intern setup, who was emailing you all, who helped organize and work this project with me on behalf of Dogwood. I also want to say thank you to Loretta also for stepping in to help co-moderate and direct the questions. I just want to be, like I said, we're here trying to be a bridge and a voice to you folks. I hope you all do, on some level, get elected. I do. We're nonpartisan, so we cannot endorse. Some folks were asking those questions. We're not allowed to, but we still want to be a bridge and a gap. And even if you don't take on a position or you don't receive an elected seat, we still would like for you to partner and work with us. So while I have everyone here, given the nature of the conversation, and like I said, Dogwood is just trying to expand itself, wood pellet as well, but we rock with a lot of environmental justice organizations. I guess to the point, I would like to know, is your office, or will your office, if you do take seat, be open to us? Mm-hmm. General Assembly's coming up. I hope to see you, Senator Woodward. I hope to see you, Representative Baker, Sean, and I know some of you on some level, but my question, I'm gonna go down the line, and then we can go ahead and you all can give us, but will your office be available to us, given if we position some legislation? We're looking possibly to do a study will you be a friend to those who are in the environmental justice community? I know you're here. I know you're sitting here. I know you're taking the questions, but this is a more hardline question for us to be able to know what access will we be given after this, because we do represent and we do bring up an organization, as I mentioned, the Impacted Coalition Against Wood Pillars that Emily helps to manage. So I want to know, and I'm going to start here and we can go down the line. Dee?
Yeah, so I actually believe in transparency, and so I'd be open to all constituents. I don't know if you're a constituent, but I would still be open to you. I really appreciate it, and I find that as I do these forums, I actually take notes, and I go home and I look up stuff, and I learn a lot, so I really appreciate the interaction.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
So the answer is yes. I would definitely want to be able to partner with Dogwood and other groups to find solutions to these problems. I want to say that we all want to solve problems of pollution. We all want clean air, right? Maybe our first option isn't to look directly to government and the hammer that they wield to go hammer our enemies, because that hammer can be used against you. When the political tides turn, the hammer still exists. And the other side can take that hammer and they can use it against you and the things that you want to accomplish. So my solutions that I'd try to look to first with you are social-based solutions and market-based solutions, and ways that we can incentivize people to get you to the solution that you want. And I would work very, very hard to help you in that regard.
Thank
you. Whether I win or lose, hit me up. No, the principles of the Dogwood Alliance are things that I've always aligned with, especially given my background in climate, environmental science. So I would have no issue hearing you out. But not only you, I don't want to make it seem like I'm only gonna listen to the people that agree with me. If I were to be elected, I would still want to hear from people who I may disagree with. I mean, I may not follow through with what you have to say, but I still want to hear from you, because if you're going to represent, you represent everybody, right?
Yep. Ryan Brown, Senate 18. I will always have an open door policy. My two candidates that I'm running against, or my two opponents I'm running against, never reply to me on social media or anyone I see. You can find me on my website, ryanbrownnc.org, my Twitter, ryanbrownnc. If I get elected, my door is always open. With that being said, I do not believe in the force of government to impact and direct their force on people who are trying to live in their own peaceful way on their own private property, respecting their own rights. So if that includes, burning a tree for their own warmth, then I support it. I know it's not the popular position. I know it's not what you want to hear, but it's the principle I have to live by. I will always be open to listening to the problems that are presented, even if we disagree on solutions. If you can identify a problem and we can both work to a solution, I may do it differently, but it's not because I don't care. I do care about the people and I do care about the environment. I just do not believe the government has legitimate use of force in this area. And to that end, I cannot support any legislation that would implement a top-down approach. Thank you.
So you actually channeled what I was thinking, because what I wanted to say prior to you asking your question is, as for my office, constituent services, and constituent can be someone from my district. Oftentimes we're helping people from other districts. It is the largest part and the best part of this job. I'm a people person. I love connecting with people. I love being able to help and assist people. And so to your question, yes, I would expect that you guys would continue to help me get stronger in my knowledge base. I was recently given the Green Tie Award, because I am out there doing the work. And education is what I know. So the things that, like I've said repeatedly, for the things that I don't know, I have to look to the people who are more knowledgeable in that area than myself. And so, yes, I will always my door is always open. My phone is always available. My email is always available. And I would expect that you would help me grow in that area so that I can understand what the issues are, so that I can be respectful about the legislation that's being passed.
Thank you.
Short answer, yes. Long answer, yes. I would very much welcome discourse. I'm a city councilman over in Mebane. I love passing legislation. And most importantly, I love having difficult conversations. We may not agree all the time, but it's the coolest thing when I'm out there, when I'm door knocking, when I'm having legitimate conversations over coffee or beer, and I stop in my tracks. I'm like, oh, shoot, that's a good point. I want to have more of those conversations. I want to continue those conversations. So when we're talking about having a discourse, having conversations about pushing forward good legislation, count me in.
You have a pledge on your page. The first thing I did was sign it. Why? You're welcome at my treehouse anytime. I tell people that I believe one of the things that legislators lack on both sides is local offices, because some people can't make it to Raleigh. My doors will always be open, as long as you don't mind climbing into a treehouse. Because that's what we're here to talk about, protecting Mother Earth. I will always, always welcome someone. Even if they disagree, I always welcome in my office, because that's how I learn. And I look forward to learning from Dogwood more and more each day, because we have an issue. In Houston, we have a problem. Thank you.
My phone number and email are on my website, alvinreed.com. I answer both of them myself. That will continue if I'm elected. Every day I make 100 phone calls to, my district's mostly Democrats, and so most of my callers are Democrats. I may not agree with everything they say, but I love and respect everyone. I don't care who you are. I will work with Dogwood or any other group. I may or may not agree with everything you want, but I will listen, and I will treat you with respect, and I'll do what I can.
Yes.
I was going to do the same thing. Yes, absolutely.
All right, well, that actually concludes all of the questions. Loretta, you want to say anything? All right, I was going to give you all, for closing remarks, to go ahead and give your name, area again, and just one micro spiel so we can go ahead and wrap this up. I want to vacate this premises before a certain time. So I thank you all, but go ahead, we'll start. Since we went this way, we'll start this way back down.
So my name is Keisha Sandage, and I am running for North Carolina Senate District 34, which is Cabarrus County minus the city of Midland. I am a licensed clinical social worker currently on the Cabarrus County Board of Education. I have been there for almost 2 years. I am a mom, and I'm very much protective of children. I believe that they are our future, as cliche as that may sound. If we do not protect them and the things that support them, we will not have a future, and I plan to be living as long as I can. Education is uber important to me. It's the reason why I signed up. I will fight for all things education because I believe that it's the foundation of how we get everything else. I will end by just saying, if you are not registered to vote, please do so. If you have any questions about anything related to life, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I will listen. Please give me a call, 980-434-1255. My website is Keisha, that's KESHIA, the number 4, Senate34.com.
I just, again, want to thank the Dogwood Alliance for inviting us here tonight, for those of you who are here and those who communicated online. My name is Mike Woodard. I'm seeking re-election to Senate District 22 in Durham County, and I respectfully ask for your vote in the November 8th election.
I mentioned in the beginning that my claim to fame is I'm the author of a theory that proves that a higher intelligence wrote Genesis 1:1. I'm offering $100,000 for the first person to disprove that. And my voters aren't eligible because of conflict of interest. But there's a reward out there if you can disprove my theory.
I'm the Reverend Dr. Wendy LeMay. I'm running as the Democratic nominee in House District 28. Visit my website at wendyllemay.com. And please understand that I believe strongly that I need to be the voice for the voiceless. And that's not just the people who are voiceless in House District 28. I'm the first non-binary to ever run for the North Carolina General Assembly. And I thank you, Dogwood. I do thank you because, you know, even though people don't understand how important a tree is, I do. Thank you.
I just want to thank everyone here, the moderators, for making this happen. I want to thank the Dogwood Alliance for making everything happen, especially online. My name's Sean Ewing. I'm currently serving as a councilman in the city of Mebane. I've served 15 years in the military. I'm running for North Carolina Senate District 25. That's all of Alamance County and northeast Randolph County. Asking for your vote, asking for your support, and most importantly, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Early voting is October 20th, and election is November 8th. Feel free to reach out to me, Sean at ewing4nc.com. Thank you so much.
And I too want to thank Dogwood Alliance for inviting me. This has been really informative and I appreciate it. I am Dr. Amber M. Baker, representing the District 72 in Forsyth County. And please, everything is vote, the number 4, Amber Baker. So you can hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, or at Gmail. And if your question didn't get answered and you want to talk to me directly, please feel free to reach out. If you want to talk to me about a constituent issue, you can hit me up at the General Assembly, amber.baker@ncleg.gov. But I can't campaign on that email. So if you got a campaign question, vote, the number 4, amberbaker.com.
I'm Ryan Brown, running as a Libertarian for Senate District 18. I spent a few wonderful years up in Boone, North Carolina, getting my undergrad in computer science, and I might have brought the Mountain Man back, Mountain Man look back with me. But you know, I'm running because I'm different than other candidates. The last question that we didn't have a chance to answer was, when will it be about the people, essentially? And I think as a Libertarian, I have an answer to the questions that the people are asking. And they've been asking these questions for a very long time. And the two parties that are in power are traded back and forth. They don't have the solution. It was said multiple times tonight, we don't know what we don't know. Yet we're trying to legislate what we don't know. Individually, we don't know a lot of things. And together, we still don't have the answer to every question. We can't weigh all of the questions and the values that people have. No top-down solution is going to be the correct solution for everybody. And in the end of the day, if it's not a solution that someone can live with or that they cannot survive under, they have to, or there's the force of government behind them. So I'm trying to run to give people the option to have a candidate that will not put down that top-down approach to governance. I will give them the freedom to live their life how they want to in a peaceful and contractual society where they are able to thrive among their fellow people. If you'd like to find more about me, ryanbrownnc.org. That's also my social medias. Thank you.
Hi again. My name is Eric Davis. I'm the Democratic candidate for North Carolina House District 78. So that's roughly eastern and southern Randolph counties, not counting Asheboro, and western Moore County, so Pinehurst to the west. You know, we talked a lot about education tonight and how it helps build the next generation up. And North Carolina, it used to be a place where teachers would come to because we gave great incentives, we gave master's pay, and then we did away with that. And for some reason, the teachers left. How can we expect to maintain an adequate workforce and have highly qualified teachers if we are not willing to compensate them? And, you know, a large thing I'm running on is Medicaid expansion. If for no other reason, we already pay for almost all of it. And it's every single study has shown that it will pay for itself many times over for the small amount that would be left over. And in doing so, we would literally save lives. So I don't understand the whole pushback on it. But I would also like to thank NC State and the Dogwood Alliance for hosting this. We need more of this. We need more of these forums going on because they help hold us accountable, but also gives a voice to the people that we would be representing. And a lot of times the representatives become far too removed, and we need to. I know most of the people here have given their socials, so I might as well give mine as well because I am always open to learning, and I always want to hear more. So you can. My email is eric4nchouse@gmail.com. That's ERIK, the number 4. And my Twitter, if you want to reach me there, if I can find the thing here. Eric Davis for NC1. Again, that's ERIK. I'm open to hearing from anybody, and you know I'm learning just as much as everybody else here. So please just let me know. Oh yeah, 336-328-6934. My phone's open as well. Thank you for your time.
Matt Lazak, North Carolina Senate 14. I grew up in the Scouts. I grew up in the woods. I grew up camping and fishing most of my life. I have a great love and respect for the outdoors and for our wild spaces. And I seek to protect them just as much as you do. I'm also a father of 2 grown children. I was a very young father, and I struggled working 2 jobs, put myself through college. So I also know what it's like when we pass regulations that drive up the cost of everything that we buy, from bread to food to feed our children. So I want to make sure that the cost of energy doesn't go through the roof, and I want to make sure that we work together to find rational and practical solutions to determining how we utilize our natural resources for the betterment of society without depleting them. So that's my goal. I appreciate the forum, and I appreciate the time to speak. You can also find me on my social media. My website's easy. It's matt4nc.us. Thank you.
Chris Mizell, Libertarian candidate for NC House 38. Thank you, Dogwood Alliance and NC State, for hosting this. And thank you, other candidates, for being here tonight. And for all of you listening and watching, for taking Tuesday night. You could be doing other things, so appreciate it. I am running on a platform of returning, again, power back to individuals, families, and communities where I believe it always belonged. To that extent, I want to expand housing affordability so people can live where they work, and thus reduce urban sprawl and make it so that people have to drive and commute shorter distances and thus less emissions, to kind of the theme tonight. I want to stop locking so many people in cages. We do that way too much. So criminal justice reform and expanding choice in education. I agree with my Democrat friends here that education is very important. I just don't believe it should be centralized or a top-down approach. So education is one of the most, if not the most important issues in our society, and I want to expand as much choice and competition in that industry, just like any other market, and I think that will help us solve a lot of problems and come up with creative, innovative solutions in the 21st century. My website is electmizell.com. Feel free to go there. My social accounts will be up there as well. And again, I'm accessible. Even if you disagree with everything I say, I would love to hear from you, and definitely love the feedback, and will be willing to listen and talk to any of you. So thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Dee Watson. I'm running for Senate 16. My website is electd, spelled D-E-E, Watson, WATSON.org. My social media is on Twitter and Facebook by the same name. I'm accessible in all those forms, and my email address is also on my website. I want to thank the Dogwood Alliance. I really benefit from learning here, and I really benefit from this exchange, and I'd love to talk to more of you. And also, if you're reaching me on social media and you'd like to talk about my key issues, which are school choice and criminal justice reform, I would love to talk to you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Well, I want to say thank you to all of you. I want to say thank you to Loretta for also being here on behalf of News, Spectrum News. She didn't have to, so I greatly appreciate you for coming and helping me to filter these questions today. This concludes the candidate forum for this evening. I'm going to ask, if all possible, you all would stay around and take a picture, if possible, or just for us. Tomorrow we'll be having another forum. It'll be congressional candidates. There will be 3. It may be rotating around a little bit. And I'll be moderating that one, I believe, solo. So I thank you all for being here. I thank you all for giving your time to take on these questions. I thank you all. I thank NC State as well for allowing us to be in their space to do this. That concludes to my folks on Zoom and YouTube and Facebook, and we'll be closing out now. Thank you.